Hazards exist in every workplace, but how do you know which ones have the most potential to harm our fellow CRH AMAT family members? By identifying hazards at your workplace, you will be better prepared to control or eliminate them and prevent injuries, property damage, and downtime. Some of the hazards we may face include the journey to a risk assessment begins before we start the task, using the experience, tools, processes, and training we have received to actively think through the task and identify potential hazards. We must then mitigate those hazards by putting a plan together and being aware of any changes in our work area or task as the work progresses. When it comes to risk, each of us have a different risk tolerance. As a reminder, the 10 factors that must be considered when evaluating the risks around us are: risk assessment is defined as a disciplined and ongoing process of identifying and analyzing relevant risks and forming a strategy for determining how the risk should be managed. Risk assessment is a mindset we have developed over many years in our safety journey. It is an attitude we take when we approach a task to discuss and plan out our work to reduce and eliminate the hazards present in our work area through hazard identification, which is a culmination of all our life-saving rules and a way for us to prevent incidents before they can harm someone. TRACK and THINK are common acronyms we use for the steps in our risk assessment process. No matter which process your teams use, the main objective is to identify hazards and implement controls. Our risk assessment program doesn't just pertain to projects that involve multiple people or contractors. It extends to each of our tasks we do as individuals, and in each step of our task, actively identifying hazards and controlling them before we expose ourselves to those hazards. We must all be a part of the risk assessment process and be sure to include all of our contractors and vendors we work with in this process as well. We must ensure constant communication of the risks and hazards that may be involved with their work. Risk assessments must be completed for non-routine and critical high-risk tasks as well as some routine tasks. Risk assessments must be dynamic and take a strategic view of how different activities or processes interact. Risk assessments must identify control measures based on the general principles of prevention. Changing work practices or conditions must be taken into account by the risk assessment, and any necessary additional precautions must be put in place. Risk assessments must be reviewed on a regular basis.
This is my family. Every day I come in and I see this little guy up here, and it makes me want to go home to this little guy.
Did you know 25% of all recordable incidents were caused by deficiencies or lack of risk assessments? It is imperative that we live up to our pledge of when I see something, I will stop and do something, because we are our brother's keeper.